Hi everybody, Matt Lawton here, and this is the Astrological Wings channel. We take a look today at the astrological weather report for the week of September 16th through 22nd. And what I will say about this week is, wow, it's a dense week. There is a lot going on. It's the most amount of energy I've seen packed in for a week in quite a long time. And it starts off pretty much with a full moon, bringing us into our lunar eclipse season, the full moon in Pisces, which is actually conjunct Neptune. So we've got a really interesting full moon to talk about right away, and a bunch of other stuff too. Both the sun and Venus are changing signs next weekend. The sun goes into Libra, that's the equinox, and Venus goes into Scorpio, from detriment going from rulership going into detriment. So quite a change for Venus. And there's a lot of stuff going on in between too. A lot of it having to do with Jupiter and Neptune and Uranus, with the sun also connected to that full moon. So a lot to talk about this week. So just real quick, the Astrological Wings channel is a video blog and a YouTube channel now, on YouTube for years now. And if you like what you're seeing, I'd really like you to become a follower, and don't forget to turn your notifications on. And that is if you have a YouTube account. It was a podcast for many years before that. It's still a podcast too. So if you don't want to do the video feed, audio feeds available for times when you don't want to be attached to that video, but you still want to hear something stimulating and interesting. Also, Instagram page for Astrological Winds channel. So if you have an Instagram account, please become a follower there too. I do post the link to the YouTube channel there every week in the newsreel, and sometimes I post other stuff during the week too, just on Instagram. I also post the link on my private Facebook page. So if you want to friend me, it's Matthew Lawton, Lauten, and I will approve that, and then you'll have it come up in your newsreel every week. And the best place, the most reliable place to find it, if you don't want to become a follower on YouTube, is on my website, and that's www.astrologicalwinds.com. And I embed every week's blog there. I keep them on usually for weeks afterwards so that you can refer back to them. Some of the monthly ones, stuff like that, are there. Also do a weekly calendar there on some of the Earth holidays and stuff that are going on. So that's worth checking out. And it also has the menu for all my professional services. I have been a professional astrologer for over 20 years. I was trained to do astrology for 7 years before I took it on professionally. And I would love to do your chart, or someone that you know when you're ready for that, something that you always have with you. So it's really valuable information to know if you're on that learning and growing path. So all those services are available on my website. The prices are there. If you need to work with me with the money, let me know. If you have a group that's interested in something, same thing. Also, if you're a professional and you're looking for more in-depth monthly, weekly, daily readings, get in touch with me about that too. There's my email right here. There's also a direct link to my email right on the website. So, and remember, this is a free service that I'm giving with the blog. So what I'd really like to pay it forward a little bit is if you can give the link to somebody else when you're done listening. And also remember, if you're not super familiar with astrology, you're listening to the interpretations in between the astrological terms. That's what you really want to hear and take in, so that you can still work with the energy this week, even if you don't know what Mercury square Saturn means or something. Don't get stuck on those words there and then miss what I'm saying in the interpretation, which is the more important thing. We want to work with this energy. So a lot going on this week. So I just want to really get into it, and hopefully I may talk a little quick this week, and just trying to squeeze it all into around that 30-minute frame. So Monday today, Venus is opposite Chiron. And, this is interesting because a lot of times opposition, obviously, brings in energy that's tough. And Venus with relationships, can be like, a lot of times that's where it comes in, and opposition energy comes from the other many times. So when Chiron gets involved, a lot of times it can be something where, where our wounds, our soft spots are being pushed. But it's interesting, when Venus is opposite Chiron, it actually is many times very helpful in relationships. It can help people like really come together and like have like shared experiences together. Like we've learned from the relationships, the experiences from the experiences in the relationships. And that helps us learn a lot about ourselves, and that helps us develop healthy relationships. So, like, it's a place where we can find some balance and we can make some decisions in the framework of relationships, especially ones that we're really involved with right now, and maybe like really bridge a gap that brings healing energy to both people, brings learning to both people, allows both people to shine, like to be who they are. Now, if you're really sensitive, you do have to be careful with Venus opposite Chiron, because people can make remarks that land on you and you perceive them as being insensitive, and it hurts you. That can be like a triggering kind of thing, and that obviously can lead to like arguments and battles and things like that. The other thing I really think about with Venus Chiron is that, once again, the opposition is working with others, and this is a time to get creative healing arts, working with other people on creative healing arts. I would say be careful with decision making with your finances this week, and just be very careful that before you make a decision with any finances, that you're getting everything right. So that's Monday. Tuesday is the big day. So this is the day, the chart here of the full moon. It's at 26 degrees Pisces, very close to Neptune, conjunct Neptune, and it's a lunar eclipse. So our eclipse season is starting, and it's a lunar eclipse. South node is at 7 degrees Libra, and the sun at 26 Virgo. Remember, the opposition of the full moon is the sun and moon opposite one another. So the nodal axis is what gets close to the moon and sun during the eclipse seasons, and the nodal axis has been in Aries and Libra for about a year now, right? So what we got going on here is the sun, even though it's still in Virgo and the moon's still in Pisces at 26, 27 degrees, they've gotten close enough to the south node, and then the north node would be over here in Aries, where it is creating a partial lunar eclipse. So, so not only do we have the energy of the full moon, but we have this eclipse energy too. And it's a lunar eclipse. And I do think there's a big difference between the lunar and solar eclipses. I do think like the lunar eclipse is more of an emotional kind of eclipse. It's a lot of stuff that has to do with how we're feeling on the inside. Now, that being said, when we chew things over on the inside a lot, we can create or manifest that energy in events on the outside. So, so that is something that is a possibility, but I think it's something we feel more on the inside. And remember, what you want to do is look to your chart where 26 Pisces Virgo is. That's going to tell you the two houses, the axis that this eclipse and full moon is working on in your chart, and those areas of life where you see that. Now, remember also, another thing I'd like to say about, eclipses, they can bring a sudden change into life. There can be something that, suddenly occurs, some kind of event. But really, for most people, it's not that. I would say sometimes my guesstimate is somewhere about 1 out of 4 or 5 people may have a sudden change where their life goes off in another new direction around an eclipse. So if this is hitting like some of your inner planets, your sun or moon, some of your chart points, around 26, you have more of a chance of the eclipse really making a big shift in your life. So anyway, the moon in Pisces, is a very sensitive moon. It wants to become at one with anything around it, environment, others, situations. It unifies. It's a unifying energy. And so it's conjunct Neptune too, which is the same thing. Moon and Neptune together dissolve boundaries, very Piscean energy going on there. And what's interesting, that means the sun is opposite Neptune too. So like a lot of the sun in Virgo's energy is getting diluted, dissoluted here. And they're actually in a mutable T square with the ruler, the ancient ruler, the traditional ruler of Pisces, which is Jupiter, which is at 20 degrees Gemini. So we've got a mutable T square going on, and the modern co-ruler is Neptune. So both both rulers of Pisces are actually involved in this full moon, which is very interesting. And then it also is applying to a sextile to Uranus at 27 Taurus, and that means the sun is trining Uranus. And remember what I said last week, because Uranus and Neptune and even Pluto, which was later in the week, are all in those late degrees of their signs. When one gets hit, all the others are getting hit. And even Jupiter is kind of close, in the last third, right at the beginning, because it's retro, it's slowing down and getting ready to retrograde. But anyway, here we have the whole configuration, right? So the moon in Pisces, like I said, it really wants to merge with things. That's the energy that it wants to bring. It can put us on a very spiritual journey. It is very inspiring. It's very imaginative. There's a lot of creative energy available. So it can bring a lot of artistic inspiration too. And that's what the Neptune does too. It's dissolving boundaries, making connections with the environment and with other people. And it's all about like emotional intuition too. It's like feeling things out, a lot of emotion there. But here it's opposite the sun in Virgo, which if anything is literally, Pisces and Virgo are so at opposition, because Virgo is all about like the details and getting everything right, and like honing in on the energy, really crystallizing it, and showing some results with it. And Pisces is just like going out there and just taking more and more in and just bringing more in, and it's not very precise, and it's not very detailed, and it's not editing as it goes in. It's just like, wow, so that's where the opposition comes. That's the fight that we're going to be feeling inside ourselves, between our will and this Virgo of wanting practical results, and when we don't get them, going into that very judgmental mind, going into like even critical mind. And that's the energy that it's going to direct at our emotional side, that's being in this all like super receptive kind of zone. So like it's just like, one of those situations where, we're trying to find that balance between those two things. Can we find the balance of having these grand visions that are abstract, coming from like the spiritual world, from idealistic world, from places like that are more philosophical, more religious, more in that zone? But can we bring some of that grander vision down into reality and make it useful somehow in the practical world? That's what this full moon is all about. So there can be a lot of confusion, there can be a lot of misunderstandings, because we're floating off at times here. And even the sun with Neptune, the sun at Neptune opposition can bring a lot of confusion too, through other people, where we're not really sure, where they're at yet, and we're still trying to feel that out, and we're very susceptible to taking in their energy, the energy of the environment. But this puts us in that space where we can be very contemplative, and we can use the Virgo energy to start sorting through what is someone or something that's valuable. And when we do, we can merge with that energy. This can this can be soulmate energy. This can be finding someone that you are so congruent with with values and things like that, that you can really create amazing energy. It's really wanting to lift us into a higher consciousness. And at times we can do that when we make connections with others, but we have to be very careful about being misled too. There's a lot of people out there who maybe not be sharing all their information with us, or holding back secrets, or out and out deceiving us even to try to get us to do what they want. This is also a time where we have to be really aware of our bodies. Virgo side is like I said before, when I was talking about the sun going into Virgo, it can be very much into the health thing, but it can get to a point of like even being a hypochondriac. But with moon in Pisces, we're so open that we get very sensitive to our bodies with the sun opposition, the Neptune too. All of a sudden, sensitivities to the environment, our immune systems being more sensitive, sensitivities to allergies if you have them, or to different substances, can overreact to drugs, things like that. But this is a time where we may want to escape. The harsh reality world is very difficult on Pisces, and the emotional quotient of that, and we look for forms of escapism. And for many of us, that can be a spiritual journey too. So like I said, this Virgo side's like trying to get us to bring us back into the reality of the situation and be like, hey, what can we take from this that is useful? What can we take from this that is practical? And I can do something with some of these visions in the real world, that I can bring it, with my talents, and really like crystallize some of this energy and create some forms with it. Now, the square to Jupiter is really interesting, the T square to Jupiter, because it's going to push the Piscean part of the equation again, and the Moon Neptune part, because it's got a lot of optimism, a lot of exuberance, and that grand vision again. And it really doesn't want to the problem is it doesn't want to be bothered with the details. So that's where the Virgo can come in and really help this grand vision here and keep us on track, and realizing that if we want to have success with our visions, we have to take care of the details. So the Virgo energy can do this. Now, there is a little bit of a danger here too, because like I said, the Virgo can get very critical, and and then Sun Jupiter, Moon Jupiter, you can get really arrogant and self-righteous. So you combine that with criticism, and you can start like actually turning people off, because you're just coming across as being someone who's like, a know-it-all or something. Like, and this is the type of energy, like, don't make promises that you can't keep. It can damage your relationships with others, and your reputation, basically, because you think you can do so much, and then all of a sudden you realize you didn't take care of the details, and you don't have the time, and you don't have the resources, you don't have the money. So the danger of that Jupiter and that exuberant optimism is to overlook those details. So that's where we have to bring this Virgo energy in, and not allow that to fly away on us. So, once again, really pushing to the philosophical and spiritual part of this journey. And I will say, very optimistic energy too. So like, even when there are problems, even when you may slip into arrogance or not taking care of details, there's this positive attitude that can kind of continue to take the day and make it, go the way you want it to go. So what's really interesting is the next applying aspect is the moon will be sextiling Uranus, and the sun is trining Uranus. So what I really think in this situation is a lot of the visions, a lot of the things we get out of this, right? They are going to like stimulate the mind too, to get very creative, and it will want us once again to act on it, which is great, because this energy, a lot of this Pisces Neptune moon energy, could have us just get very passive, and then just the moon, sun in Virgo is the only thing fighting it. But you inject Uranus in here, and all of a sudden, a lot of the things that you're being exposed to, new experiences, new people, new situations, are very exciting, and and it gives you the energy to want to act on them. and bring change into your life. Like, see which of these energies are really creative and there's something that you want to bring in, you know. And so what's interesting about this too is this energy is going to continue all week too, because see what it is, it's exact on Thursday, the Sun trine Uranus is exact, right? And then on Friday, the Sun opposite Neptune is exact. So this full moon energy, this eclipse energy, where we can bring change into our lives, you know, and it shows us the places where we can do that effectively in the light of that full moon, is going to be really potent all week, you know, very impregnated all week and available to us all week to really, you know, push that in. And this will really, you know, the Uranus stuff is, it's going to really lively up our life. We're going to get excited about some of this stuff, you know, that, you know, we're going to want to make changes to the situations around us and the environment and our relationships. And we're going to want to be like, you know, showing more of who we are, you know, and bringing some of our visions into the world and injecting them in there. So, you know, and the fact that it's that lunar eclipse, you know, we can, create some change, you know, bring some stuff in there. And like I said, you know, remember it is a full moon. And so, you know, that's a time where we see natural disasters can really pick up too. And the lunar eclipse, even more so. And I would say with the Neptune involved, it could be a lot of natural disasters that have a lot to do with water storms, you know, electrical storms too, Uranus, right? A lot of that energy. So like remember, the full moons and eclipses, you know, people act out and the world acts out too. Like the universe will act out, life on Earth will act out, different events socially, culturally, and through natural events will reflect this energy also. So this, you know, really guys, this full moon's about like, you know, finding that grander vision and working on it. And as you're doing that, you're going to see some amazing creative stuff that you can tap yourself into. So I really think it can work really well together. Thankfully, Uranus and Virgo, I think, are going to work together on the one level and make sure that the moon, Neptune, and Jupiter don't, like, you know, just fly off and not really do too much with those visions and that energy. And on Wednesday, we got a perfect aspect that is exactly almost the opposite energy of all that stuff when Mercury is actually opposite Saturn. So what does that do? It's just like the Virgo energy. It works on the mind, and and this is the energy where you see all the details, where you see every tree in the forest, where you can put your mind at work on the details of things. Now, that being said, Mercury, Saturn can shut down communication. You know, like it's a day where it can be really good to work alone on like detailed paperwork type stuff. We have to be a little bit careful about getting into like seeing things from a negative side, actually. And that's why a lot of times communication can get really narrow and shut down. I don't really think it's a really best day to make like deals or agreements. You know, it's more like just working on like what you want to have in that agreement is a better way to use that energy. It like kind of narrows our vision and it gets us really focused, you know, and gets us very practical. So it blends in with the Sun Virgo part of that energy. And it even reins in the Uranus. It even says, hey, you know, what am I going to do with that energy? But once again, have to be really careful about falling into that negative mindset, getting very, very judgmental, and, you know, just kind of having that kind of energy. So it's really a great day to do a lot of mental work, paperwork, computer work, you know, and if you can just really focus in on yourself. And you can also be a day where you can get advice from people who have more knowledge in the things that, you know, you're doing your work on, your research on, whatever that may be. Then Thursday, like I said, is the exact Sun trine Uranus day. So that's going to keep that full moon, and especially where you were really wanting to bring in the creative change. And we're getting really excited and stimulated about that stuff, you know. And then Friday is when the opposition to Neptune comes in. the sun. So it continues that energy once again. And this is the time where not making any serious agreements, right? But we can make some really deep spiritual soulmate connections with others, but we don't want to fall into playing a martyr or victim role, right? We want to be really careful about that with Sun Neptune. Like I said, sometimes people aren't on the up and up completely with us. So, but people that we are having good relationships with and they've been building, you can really get a deeper and deeper kind of connection on that level with this. But it does dissipate the energy, and we have to be really careful about living in that fantasy world, especially with relationships. So that full moon energy continuing. Then also that day, Venus is quincunx Uranus that day, which is a very funny aspect. It's one of those aspects where you're not really clear whether you want to be in an intimate relationship or not. Like when you're in one, it feels like it's stifling to your freedom. And when you're not in one, you're kind of looking for one. And then when you get there, it kind of like feels like, whoa, okay, did I really want this? So it can be we can be very unreliable, irresponsible in our relationships because of that. There's this just really need to have that freedom. And this is also a day to be careful about decision making with money, because you may be off with your decision making with money and find out, oh, I dropped a bunch here and I'm not going to be able to pick it back up. So definitely a little bit of an odd one there. And then Saturday also has some more stuff going on. Mercury is square Jupiter and it's quincunx Chiron same day. And Mercury square Jupiter fits right back into the sun Jupiter and moon Jupiter stuff, where you have a big vision. The mind is really open and tolerant and willing to take more in and educate itself, but it can get so lost in the bigger vision that it's not taking care of the details. So if you want success with these visions, that's what Mercury square Jupiter is saying. You have to really take care of the details. Now, I think part of it, because of the Mercury quincunx Chiron, part of that is adjusting our attitudes, redefining some of our attitudes based on what we've seen, right? And once we do that, it can allow the energy to come in to allow the planning and the foresight to start going towards that vision. And then once again, we can start to apply some of the Virgo energy of the full moon energy into getting the details down. Now also that day, Venus is quincunx Neptune. And that's an interesting one too. Like I said, there's so much going on this week. This is Saturday. So Venus is quincunx Neptune. This can get us really idealistic about relationships. Like we're not being real about relationships, but it's also very creative, stimulating, imaginative energy for artistic type work. So good time to expose yourself to art or doing some art. But with relationships, we can be funny. We can kind of like get into this thing where we think we're serving others out of this higher ideal, where we're actually lowering our own energy, possibly just to get love. So we have to be very discerning. Like we may settle to, for stuff that's less than what we're worth. It can literally bring in almost like that self-worth issues, and we can be like get victimized then, by others, or like, lower our vibe to fit in with others or to be with others out of this need for love. So it's very, very odd. It's like we're kind of feeling like we need some support, but we have to be very careful about martyrizing ourselves or just lowering ourselves to a level where we're going to end up disappointed. And then also, Sun is trine Pluto the Saturday and Sunday also. So another time, another one of those energies where we're coming into our own power and we have influence in the world around us. We can bring creative transformation into our lives, and it can affect the people around us in a really good way too. So this is a time where we want to reform anything that we see is not in a good state in the situations that we're in. And that can be material and physical, that can be, abstract situations. And, we can also end up getting really deep, impactful connections with other people that both people end up really getting uplifted and evolved and inspired from the connection that they get. But this gives us a lot of energy too. We can move a lot of energy next weekend. We can move a lot of energy around and we gain a lot of self-knowledge while we're doing that. We're really living and experiencing life, and there's a passion to that brings it to a depth that brings experience in and brings a lot of learning and evolving and growing in. And we're not done yet. On Sunday there's a few more things going on. That's the day the sun goes into Libra, so that is an equinox. That is the equinox, and I'll probably do an equinox chart as a blog soon. So if you're into that, look for that. But when the sun goes into Libra, it's going to be a month. It's when the zodiac goes over to the relationship side of the six signs that are more about the others. So this is when we really bring out our charm, our social grace. We want to make connections with others. We want everyone to feel good. We're a peacemaker, and unless we get really backed into a corner. I mean, Libra will go to war if they feel someone is really being disgraceful and ugly and just combative, and they back that person into a corner. And Libra can be quite a fighter then. But for the most part, this is about bringing balance, harmony, and peace, not only into our relationships, but our environment too, where we can beautify things. We enjoy nature. We enjoy art. A lot of creative energy too tapped into here. Like, can really tap into creative ideas too. So really, real sweet energy, the energy of wanting to bring in balance, the energy of wanting to bring in peace, the energy of wanting to find like some harmony in our lives and with others and our surroundings. Now, Venus is square Pluto that day too. So this is very intense energy in relationships. We can have some very powerful, dramatic, passionate emotions come up within the frame of relationships, and issues with power and manipulation, possession in relationships. We have to be very careful with this energy about getting very obsessive and really taking things way too far in relationships and getting into this battle, that we have to allow the changes that are occurring in relationships to do that now, because there's transformation occurring. But a lot of people will try to hold on and control things in this energy, and then it can get into very much like a power struggle. And so there's a lot of instability going on, and that's difficult to go with. And then Venus goes into Scorpio right after that. So it goes from a sign, Libra, where it's super strong and beautiful and graceful, into Scorpio, where the goddess of love just really is uncomfortable because the energy there is dark and deep and shadowy about love. It's like there's these connections that go way beyond just something light and happy. And so there's issues of betrayal, there's issues of power, there's issues of loyalty that come up with Venus and Scorpio. Venus and Scorpio wants a deep connection, and it will eliminate superficial ones. It will be hone in on ones that are feel really right for it. But once it does that, it is super committed to it, and that you have to be really careful, because these are other people, and that they may not be feeling that same way, and then you can be the one who's feeling betrayed, and then what you do from that point can end up in love hate type things, love hate, obsessions, relationships, intensity, things like that. Also, once again, a time where we need to be really careful with our money, and be really make sure that we're putting it in the right places. And this can bring some really deep, intense, creative, artistic, creative energy that can be very transformative to our soul, where emotions really come out in the things that we're creative with, very much so. But very intense energy with Venus and Scorpio. So quite a week, you guys. So much packed in there. And the full moon really, and the eclipse really pushing getting our grander vision out there, but the Mercury part saying, hey, you really need to work on it to make it come down to this world, or you're going to end up finding that a lot of disappointment and a lot of things that, just don't work out in reality. So there are some really good ideas available out there, but we have to do that work. And the Virgo, the Mercury opposite Saturn, things like that bring it into reality. And then, quite a shift that'll go on later too in the week when we start to go from Venus into Scorpio energy, where the relationships can start to be like pared down and focused in on, and yet bring some more depth into them. A lot of complex energy to work with. Like, so day to day, it's going to be like just feeling it out and working through that and making sure that we're not going off too far in either direction, where the vision is not having the details taken care of, or we're getting so judgmental about stuff that, we're killing the vision. So, all right, you guys, so much to talk about this week. And I know it was probably a little bit quicker than I actually like to go through each of those things, but in the honor of the time, trying to get the blog done in a certain amount of time, that's what I can do for us. So next week will be the last week in September. And Mercury's got a little bit of a journey going on next week. It's going to change signs and go into Libra. So that means right before that, it's going to hit all those outer planets. So we'll have a lot of Mercury to talk about next week for sure. And then I think Mars is going to end up trining Saturn next week too. So some more stuff to talk about next week. Try to use this energy. Remember to look in your chart where that 26 degrees axis is of Virgo and Pisces, to really see where it's going to hit you, this full moon and this lunar eclipse. All right, you guys, smooth sailing with all that, and I will see you all next week. Remember, you're going to pass the blog on to somebody right now that might be interested in it. And remember, you can support me. There's my website. There, all my services are there. If you know anyone that's looking for a chart reading, or if you're ready for yours, and you're ready for that, just check out the services there. Get in touch with me, and we'll get the ball rolling. All right, I'll see you all next week.